got an interview with Sam Baker on the website. I'm looking at it right now. How important is it going to be for Baker to be in there for 16 starts in 2009? And is he healthy and ready to go and try to do that?
He's healthy. He's ready to go. I think last year, if you look back on that injury history with Sam, he was brought along back to the field maybe a little slower than he would have otherwise with the situation. You look at what the Falcons did late in the season in securing the playoff spot and how well Todd Weiner was. Maybe in another situation, Sam could have been put back in a little quicker, but they wanted to make sure he was healthy for the playoffs, which he was. And I've talked with some of my colleagues here, Matt Moore of AtlantaFalcons.com, who does all of our video, and we kind of agree. Sam Baker is a key on this offense. Obviously, you got Tony Gonzalez, who's going to come in and do some good things. You got Michael Turner, who you need to stay healthy. You got Matt Ryan, who you need to stay healthy. There's a lot of those type situations, but if you're looking at just a key, Sam Baker is really the guy because he performed so well early on before that injury that just kind of held him back. And when you think about that position, protecting the quarterback's blind side, it's even more important nowadays because it's too hard to build a whole lot of depth in the NFL. There's just not that many really superstar players to go around. So Sam Baker is going to be a key to this offensive success, and he seems like he's getting comfortable. And he told me he's building a pretty good relationship with the guys. That offensive line hasn't changed, so he's getting to know them more as people, and that can only help too.
And having the offensive line in place for a second year in a row, having those five guys. I mean, I know Sam was out, and Weiner had to come in there at that tackle spot, but for the most part, Claybo, Dahl, McClure, Blaylock, and Baker are the main five from last year. I mean, that in itself, having the same five offensive linemen back for Matt Ryan is unusual, and that's got to be a luxury as well.
It is an unusual. That's a great way to put it. When you look at other teams around the NFL, it's not uncommon, but it's not necessarily unexpected to have all these guys together, the five guys returning, and with Sam Baker coming back healthy. And even in the draft, I remember talking to you and other people, we'd say, hey, the offensive line is going to be a focus in terms of adding depth, and that's what Thomas Dimitroff did, and you can tell that's what Paul Boudreau and Paul Dunn, the two coaches over there, are trying to do. They're trying to coach that depth. But the familiarity with each other, the familiarity with the coaching staff at that position is really going to pay dividends, and that's exciting if you're a Falcons fan, considering how much they, if you want to use this word, overachieved last year in terms of only allowing 17 sacks, and in terms of, getting this team back to a top 3 rushing attack when nobody expected them to be able to do it. So they still carry that chip on their shoulder, but they're also very comfortable with each other, and that's going to pay dividends down the road.
Hey, Michael Moore is our guest from AtlantaFalcons.com, talking about the Falcons minicamp that just ended over the weekend. I'm watching video of Tony Gonzalez from the website, hey, Michael, and just seeing Tony Gonzalez, I mean, it's Tony Gonzalez. He's at the end of our era here in the NFL, and my question, I guess, is, what does that bring, and could you tell if, even in this minicamp, just his presence, regardless of what he did on the field, just his presence of being there in that red uniform does for the offense and does for the entire team?
Well, for the fans at least, they had to pinch themselves. That's what it did for them. But it is kind of hard to believe when you look at it and see him out there. And for the whole team, it brings a veteran leadership. Pete Prisco of CBS Sports wrote a great column, I believe, yesterday, just talking about, and I saw this myself too, about how practice is over, but Tony Gonzalez is over hitting a blocking sled. Everybody else is off the field. And, you could say, well, he's trying to get in here and, work with the new team and stuff like that, just, working a little overtime. But you talk to Tony and it's like, no, that's what he does. That's what he did for 12 years in Kansas City. That's not something to, impress or something just to get up to speed. So there's a work ethic there with Tony Gonzalez that's already starting to rub off. And then, with the other tight ends, it's just how you do things, how you go through a practice. That's a very unique position to go through a practice because they kind of have to split guys up, and some are working with the offensive line for a drill, and then you're over here running routes, and, they have a lot of different ground to cover. So Tony Gonzalez brings a nice veteran presence into there to go along with Ben Hartsock and Justin Peele. So he really does a lot of things on the defensive side of the ball. He's going out there and he's burning guys at practice. So they're going to have to, immediately get better. And there was a little John going on, especially between Mike Peterson, the new linebacker, and Tony Gonzalez, two veteran guys that, know how to go through a practice, know how to get the best work out of that limited amount of time. But, he's going out and, beating safeties, beating young guys. Like I said, everything was thrown his way. He was catching end zone, between the 20s, wherever you want to put it. And, those guys learned something in that 5-second burst that Tony Gonzalez went up against them.
It's funny hearing that about Gonzalez and doing the overtime work and after practice work. We've been talking on the show today about two players who we kind of question their leadership ability, and Joe Johnson of the Hawks and Chipper Jones of the Braves. And then you hear a storyline about Tony Gonzalez, knowing that particularly those young players on that roster, at any position, but more likely on offense more than anything, are going to see how he handles his business and see the dedication. And, that can only be a benefit. That's what's so exciting to me about this is, I'm not ordering my Super Bowl tickets or anything, but, you just look at that type of acquisition to see that type of personality added to the team of still a young core of players, and to wonder if that's a missing link that could really make this a very, very solid and even better than last year's offense.
Yeah, that's a good point. You look at this offense, it was a top 5 offense without Tony Gonzalez, with the tight ends only combining for 19 catches. So you look at the X's and O's side, like you said, there's no question that Tony Gonzalez is going to change some things up. But I'm curious to see how this mix happens, because you had a lot of younger guys on that offense, Matt Ryan being the first person to throw out there, that really developed their own special style of leadership, really shocked some people with how well and quickly they became leaders. Remember, Matt Ryan was voted a captain of this team at the end of the year as a rookie, which is unheard of in this league. So when you think about that young style of leadership, those young guys who are coming out and, hey, maybe you can just say they don't know any better. There's that youthful exuberance that they're, going to go out and run through brick walls because, hey, they're having fun and, nothing can stop them. So maybe you do throw in a little Tony Gonzalez, a guy who has never won a playoff game in his career, who came from situations in Kansas City where he had ups and downs and everything in between. To see how all that mixes, you're right. That's going to be interesting, and I think it can only help, and you're going to see kind of a new breed of leadership take place here. And I think that's what Thomas Dimitroff and Coach Mike Smith had talked about when sprinkling in free agent veterans as leadership roles. You get that combination of youth and excitement with the level-headed of a veteran, and you can say Mike Peterson is going to be that guy on the defense, which he already has shown that he's the guy that's going to do the talking. He's the guy that's going to slap guys on the helmet and, has no problem screaming in front of the entire team to tell them what a guy did wrong. So
that's what they did in New England, right? That's just what Dimitroff is used to and what they did in New England.
Exactly, and that's really, if you want to say it's New England South down here, maybe that's a little too simplistic, because there are a whole lot of differences, especially in the coaching staff and the styles that the teams run and stuff like that. But it's always been about building a core and then knowing your system and keeping your system consistent. And that goes back to second year of the defense, second year of the offense. And this team really only lost one coach, and that was Tom McMahon, who had a chance to go be special teams coordinator, get a promotion in St. Louis. So when you lose a guy on special teams and everyone else stays the same on the coaching staff, that's something that's getting overlooked a lot too. And then that just says, okay, everything's staying the same. Now we can just start kind of filling in some holes. And what New England has always been able to do, just kind of put, another coat of paint on the wall as it starts to chip, and just keep rebuilding, reloading.